Hello, my name is Whittick, spiritual life coach, and welcome back to the Deeper Knowing series on her inspirations. I created this series because when we embrace our emotions, we are increasing what we allow ourselves to experience. We learn more about ourselves and we see how much more we are capable of holding, and therefore we have more capacity to be there in a bigger way for others. We cannot be destroyed by our emotions. They are illuminating the myriad of tones in our energetic resonance. We are stronger because of them. They are a gift. This week, grief. From Earl A. Grollman in Living with Loss. Grief is love not wanting to let go. And if you haven't already, do consider joining the mailing list so that you can receive the additional meditation, journaling, and inspiration notes to help you on your journey. Links to those are in the show notes below. So what is grief? Grief is a natural response to loss, and that not necessarily means only death, but also in various life changes, things such as divorce, job loss, major transitions, moving house, even the loss of a pet. So even subtle losses in life can trigger a sense of grief. Things like moving away from home, graduating from college, or changing jobs. And then there are the secondary losses that come with grief. We could be losing identity, purpose. It may strip us of our drive and motivation, our strength, a community. All of these things that we don't necessarily immediately think of do come with the process, and they bear thinking of. When we do get to the point of acceptance and start to process grief, the realization of the shift in those areas can in itself then cause us to experience more pain and have to process a deeper aspect that maybe we were not expecting or not aware of. And what are the right things to grieve? Well, all loss is a valid loss. It's personal to you, so there's no need to feel ashamed about how you feel or what you believe is an appropriate subject or thing to grieve about. Whatever causes your grief is worthy to you. And why is it that grief is so challenging and so painful? Ultimately, we don't like change. Change is so uncomfortable for us. And especially if we find ourselves in a situation that we feel secure in, that we find comfort in, a home, a job, a relationship, and then that breaks down for many of the reasons that I mentioned before. It means now we need to shift our whole world psychologically, spiritually, and often physically. And all of those uprooting of ourselves and placing ourselves in a different experience can cause a lot of trauma. Any unhealed wounds of abandonment or unprocessed guilt can then re-emerge at that time. Also, collective grief. I believe that the collective grief is something that we are not and we do not mention. The aftermath of the pandemic is still being felt to this day. And there are different aspects of that people are grieving. It could be loss of life due to health reasons. It could be loss of relationships because of people's perspective on what was happening. It could also be the awakening to what was really happening in the world and the realization that where we thought we were and what we believed about society and our reality was a fallacy, and adjusting to that new paradigm and seeing what that means for everything. And there are certain aspects of our life that were okay to go along with before that just don't fit now. And if people are still trying to work out where it is they sit, how their life should be or could be, and finding a way of who they are going to be in this world post-pandemic, they may still be processing all of that. I personally believe that the majority of people have not grieved what it is that we experienced. There is a suppressed tension, almost a sense of hypervigilance every time a winter comes round, every time potential new danger is mentioned in the media. People get into that anxious state again, knowing that they don't want to go through that situation, and that can be from the point of view of how the measures that were taken in response to that affected them, be that for their health or be that for their businesses. Many people are mourning the loss of an income that they had before and have never really fully recovered from that. And then, talking of the stages of grief, psychologist Elizabeth Kubler-Ross proposed 5 stages of grief. Initially, we have the denial. So on the first mention that something is happening, it's sometimes too much to take in. So it's easier at that point to protect ourselves psychologically by denying that anything has happened. And then that gives way to anger. Now we're getting frustrated. Now, especially if we have experienced a loss within a relationship, is almost, how dare they leave me with all of this? Maybe the finances weren't left in the best position. Maybe you find out more about the person once they're passed, and you are now in a situation where you have to take up all the loose ends. Also, anger at the way that other people are reacting or are not reacting as well. And then it's bargaining. You may find yourself negotiating with God, with a higher power, to say, if you take this away from me, if you bring them back, then I will be a better person. I will make up for all the wrongs that I've done in the past. Then the depression. The depression is then really coming to the realization of what is happening and feeling the flatness and the true loss. This is a truly dark stage of feeling sad and numb and empty, and believing that you're truly alone and not able to share because maybe people won't be able to understand, and maybe your feelings are too much and too big, and then pulling away and isolating yourself instead of opening up and sharing and finding the right people to share. And granted, it's not always easy to choose who around you has the capacity to hold you in the way that you need to be held during that time. And then the final stage is acceptance. That's when we realize that this is the way that life is. The pain may not be so present, the pain may have subsided by now, but we're understanding that they are gone, or this aspect of our life is no longer with us. Now, with acceptance, we start to make the moves to reformulate our life with that loss. And when it comes to these stages, even though I kind of named it in the way that Kubler-Ross proposed them, there, I believe, are many stages to grief that sometimes never comes in this linear fashion. There might be a period where you're staying and lingering in one for longer than you perceive to be a right amount of time. Grief doesn't have a timetable. It's on your clock. It's when you feel better. And sometimes you may go, I know from my own experience, for many months and feel okay, and then something can trigger it, and then that may not even be, and I'm talking about loss of a loved one, that may not even be their a birthday or an anniversary or anything. It might just be a moment where a memory arises, and then there's a realization of them not being there, and then there's a whole processing that you go through to find peace and equilibrium with yourself again. But when these things come up, it's healthy to express those emotions, and if you can, and find the right person, as I mentioned, this is really important, is to find the support that is able to support you. Other things that I've found useful for processing grief is journaling how I felt about the situation, how I felt about the person, journaling to them, writing letters, just opening my heart and allowing those thoughts and emotions to come out of the page. I've used that process also when I've had to grieve situations where it's not necessarily about people who have passed over. It's more about the end of a relationship. It's more about the end of a situation, or it may even be, and this has happened before, grieving a situation because I sense the end is coming and I'm trying to not necessarily preempt it, but organize my thoughts around it because I get a feeling that something is happening. Also, it's useful for people to create ritual, and that can be whatever you want it to be. It can be just listening to someone's favorite song. It can be holding an item of their clothing. It can be something that allows you to keep that person with you. You may pray for them as well, pray for them on their birthday, on their anniversary, or just pray for them, You may, I know for myself as well, when I think about my mom, I always think about butterflies and roses. And there were, when she passed, I remember for a good few weeks, I just always encountered butterflies. And it wasn't just butterflies in the air, like the living butterflies. I was seeing butterflies everywhere. I'd speak to people, they'd have butterfly tattoos, butterfly on their clothes, butterfly earrings, butterfly hair clips, butterflies on a suitcase. I remember seeing one, to the point where it actually became really overwhelming at one point, and I said stop. But it also gave me comfort, because during those periods, those first few weeks where I could feel myself about to sink, there was just an awareness of, hang on, I'm not gone. I'm really not gone. And then this is moving over now to a spiritual perspective. When it comes to grieving, we may find ourselves questioning the meaning of life, the nature of death, and the possibility of an afterlife. And for me, the questioning of life when it comes to grieving, almost within every decade of my life, I've lost somebody quite significant to me, beginning with my father and then friends at school. And I lost them early. So whatever age I was, they were pretty much in the same age group as me. So from very early, I began to question the meaning of life and death itself. My question was always, where do they go? That's why I was comforted by the appearance of these butterflies, because I always had that belief and used that as a symbol when I was thinking of my father. So that just continued when my mum passed. And like I said, it was undeniable. I was being supported. And also looking from a deeper perspective of what grief brings you, it brings you an opportunity to search for meaning and purpose in your life. When you realize the frailty of life, you truly question, what are you doing with yours? Are you doing something useful with your days, or are you just simply spending your time? For many people, when it comes to spirituality, their faith gets tested. They will doubt that there could possibly be any kind of benevolent God or universal creator, especially if what they lost was done so brutally, if it was an unexpected death or loss of a job or money or a home. Questions arise as, how could there possibly be anything other than just a wickedness in the world if this has happened to me? Loss brings with it those questions about those curiosities. And as we move through the process, or as we begin to process through the different stages of grief and get to more acceptance, we see also that grieving opens us so wide open, shows us how much we are capable of feeling. And it can be almost like a wretched feeling. Everything around you just seems meaningless. And yet you realize how much meaning there is. For there to be one extreme, there has to be the polarity. And then in times of grief, people come to spirituality because it offers them a lifeline during those hard times. It offers them hope. It offers them comfort. It brings a new awareness of the fact that there is more. So while having any loss foisted upon us is the last thing that we would want for ourselves, grief shows us and teaches us so much. It shows us the brevity of life. It shows us that at any moment, anything can change, anything can be lost. And it's an invitation for us to live with purpose. The pain in our heart that we feel shows us how deep we are able to feel and emote. It shows us the enormity of our heart, how huge our heart is, that our heart works. It makes us grateful for the things that are present in our life. It makes us grateful for the people that are present in our life. It makes us grateful for the people who support us in our life, and even the people who are not able to support us. There is gratitude for us seeing who we have around us, and sometimes the only way we are able to recognize that is through going through these hard times. Grief teaches us to have patience and compassion with ourselves and with the people who are grieving, because it's it's an individual journey that will come in fits and starts and ebbs and flows as we move through that. If we allow ourselves to go through the journey of that and observe what it is that we learn about ourselves and learn about others, when it comes to us needing to offer support to others, we know that it's not just a one-stop shop, that everything isn't all wrapped up and clean, especially after a death of a person, after the memorial. There will be moments where, sometimes it's useful just to check in with someone and just ask them how they're doing. Grief also will show resilience, seeing how much pain and hurt that you're able to feel, but then months or years later, being unrecognizable to yourself, seeing how that pain transforms you and creates a strength within you. Not saying that you want to continually go through these things, because it's not like you can batch process your guilt, but it's knowing that you can and you will get through it, that you will find a level of acceptance, a level of life again, and you will smile again, and you will win again. What grief has taught me is that even though the people and the things and the situations are no longer in my life in a way that I can interact with them, I can still interact with them on an energetic and emotional level. They've never lost. There is connection always. Going through that process, bringing those memories in and out, seeing what it is I experienced with those things, those situations, those people. I can bring them here with me right now and experience their presence and know what I learned from them, and be grateful for the lessons that they've taught me, and be grateful that I'm still here living my life as a result of having experienced those things, or experience of having loved those people. From Vicky Harrison, grief is like the ocean. It comes on waves, ebbing and flowing. Sometimes the water is calm and sometimes it is overwhelming. All we can do is learn to swim. Thank you for listening to another episode of Her Inspirations, a Deep and Knowing series. Before you leave me, I want to ask you if you feel like something is calling you to show up bigger. I'm working with conscious creators at the moment. We're at a pivotal moment in human history, and I believe it's so important for us to dig deep into our hearts and souls. And if we feel the call to express our visions in the world, then that is what we should do. And if you know there's a purpose to your life, my purpose is to help you make that happen. So if this message is awakening a curiosity within you, I invite you to follow the link in the show notes and book a call with me so that we can have a conversation and I can see how I can support you. Once again, consider joining the mailing list for additional meditation, journaling, inspiration and exclusives. Link in the show notes. Find me on my website, carolmaywhittick.com, CarolMaywhittick.com, LinkedIn and Facebook, Carol May Whittick, and on Instagram, Casmic, CAZMICK. Until the next episode, thank you so much for listening. Take care. Bye-bye.